It is absolutely long overdue that we've had this conversation. It's time to call out the racism, sexism, bigotry, and hate that is so prevalent in the gaming community. Something occurred in 2016 that made bigots and racists far too comfortable in coming out in the open with these trash ideologies. But guess what? It's 2021 and things are changing, and this nonsense won't be tolerated. So today, I'm not thrashing one of the console companies for their indiscretions at the expense of consumers. But you hate-filled little clowns who cry social justice this and woke culture that, but really hide your racism and hate behind the veil of demands for historical accuracy in games. You had no problem suspending your disbelief when Kratos crawled out the pits of Tartarus or any nonsensical occurrence in video games. But Lord forbid they include a person of color, because that is where the line is drawn when it comes to your ability to immerse yourself in a fictional universe. Guess what, you small little, weak-minded, living in your mom's basement, hate-filled losers. Today is your day of reckoning here at Enter Cheat Code. So let's jump in, because your boy ain't pulling any punches and the gloves are off. The game industry is undergoing some sweeping changes across the board. And one of those glorious changes is that we see more diversity and representation happening within the industry as a whole. Not only in the video games we enjoy, but the people who develop these games and tell these stories. So naturally, we see games and their protagonists, as well as surrounding cast, embody that diversity as well. See, minorities and groups that have been misrepresented, underrepresented, or marginalized throughout history as a whole largely are rejoicing in the fact that we can finally see ourselves in video games and media as a whole. Don't be so ignorant and naive to think that we are simply satisfied and going to support a game on the sole basis that the main protagonist is like us, or dismisses all elements of our identity and culture, or the character's entire existence is solely based on those traits, be it skin color, ethnicity, or sexual identity. We don't want that pandering, exploitative, token nonsense, and we see through that nonsense as well. We hold creators accountable, and we demand that our representation in media and games goes beyond surface level culture, or is simply a commentary on our historical or modern day struggles as a people. Because guess what? Our identity is not defined by this. I am not saying that a homogeneous mindset is required on this topic, as I have many African American friends who have criticized Disney's upcoming live action Little Mermaid due to changing her to an African American girl and how it seems unnecessary. We are not of a hive mentality, but I am addressing a specific group of people. There is a very loud and vocal minority that is bothered by these changes in the industry. They feel threatened by the shift in the status quo, as if they should be the only type of people represented in video games. And when a character doesn't fall into this box of what they have deemed acceptable, their racism and bigotry begins to show. Oftentimes, it's not explicit, but the undertones are there, and we recognize the dog whistle terminology used. Guess what? We see it loud and clear, despite your attempts to hide it. And with each game unveiled that features a person of color or of LGBTQ identity, you're always there to speak up against it with claims of wokeness. So during God of War's Ragnarok recent reveal, they unveiled a black woman as a character by the name of ANGRBODA, portrayed by Laya DeLeon Hayes. And surprising to no one, the loud vocal minority was quick to respond with visceral hate towards the character and her inclusion, making claims that her presence doesn't belong in the universe based on its geographic location given the historical context. Guess what? These Twitter hate professors are actually wrong and have been debunked by actual historians that there were Black Vikings and Black people included within Norse mythology. This is where the racism and best case scenario, your ignorance, is shown, hidden under false demands for historical accuracy. They have no problem suspending their disbelief and and accepting blue dwarves, Loki being the son of a Greek demigod, and all Jotun being described as lily white. All elements that are not in line with Norse mythology. Yet the inclusion of a black woman is where the line is drawn and breaks your experience. You have been exposed as a racist, and maybe you have trouble putting that label on yourself, but I have no problem doing it. You are familiar with the old adage, if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck. So don't be so disingenuous about what you are. If that is you, own it. And if this claim of mine makes you feel so pressed, then be better and do better. We won't let the trolls mar the inclusion of this character with negativity. The black community is praising the design of this character, particularly her hair. Black hair seems to be pretty difficult for games to get right. It may be because black hair is thicker and has more texture, or it may be that most games still consist predominantly of white characters who have had sufficient time and money dedicated to their design, while black characters and character creator engines are left with minimal options such as shaved head, thin lines of cornrows, or low quality afro. This is a major step forward in meaningful inclusion and representation, where minorities and their portrayals are no longer simply an afterthought, but meant to be done with respect towards the culture. If you need further evidence of this, take a look at the leap in hair design as it pertains to Miles Morales in Spider-Man's 2018 game versus his own starring game. Another game also attacked comes in the form of Last of Us 2, the most acclaimed video game in history, receiving 300 awards, which further enforces my aforementioned point of a loud minority. This game was attacked for Abby and her appearance. She was not represented as the barely clothed, overly sexualized, societally enforced definition of femininity, but rather a woman with a muscular build. Women come in all shapes and sizes, and the problem exists when gamers can't accept various portrayals of women. You don't have to go far down social media to see the sexist and misogynistic hate towards the character and the design choice, as if a woman's only inclusion in a game is to serve as some sex symbol. We further see controversy and hate towards surrounding the inclusion of a transgender character by the name of Lev in Last of Us 2 as well. See, these hateful losers will only be satisfied if games are only for them, and whenever something goes against this, they feel threatened by their existence and fight to reclaim and maintain a status quo. But they must accept this will no longer happen. We live in a diverse and multicultural world, and entertainment is simply a reflection of that. Nobody is taking anything away from you at all. Art is a reflection of life, and guess what? We are here. It's not the inclusion of us in video games that truly bothers you. It's our existence in its entirety that bothers you. Some of you just haven't made peace with that notion yet because somehow the label of being a racist or bigot bothers you, which bewilders me. You can't love the culture of these groups and hate the people. This backwards way of thinking doesn't make any sense. Our differences and diversity are a thing of beauty to be celebrated that should ultimately make us stronger and bring us closer together. Yet this loud vocal minority uses this as a mean to sow the seeds of divisiveness. And guess what? We need to stand up against hate in all forms and fashions. Do better, be better, and always remember, with great power comes great responsibility. Until next time.